So, I'm Michael James Edding. It is Monday, October 9th, 2006. Today is Columbus Day in the USA. And in Canada, I believe they celebrate Thanksgiving. Wow, this is episode 6 of Rancet Poetry, and I'm going to focus on poetry. Okay, so you're probably wondering how to get started writing poetry. And maybe you've written a poem or two and you showed it to your parents or friends or co-workers, and they basically looked at it and said, "Wow, that's good." Maybe you're a poet, and maybe you're not. But there's a lot to get started with in poetry, more than just sitting down and writing something creative. I would say the best bet for the beginning poet today would be to get a book called Poetry for Dummies. Yeah, it's a real book. Look it up on Amazon.com. I wish I had the resource when I was starting out 20 years ago, but we didn't have the For Dummies line of books back in the 1980s. Anyway, failing that, some things you're going to need. Dictionary of synonyms and antonyms. Very useful. You do not want to say the same word over and over again. You want to have variation. Rhyming dictionary. Rhyming dictionaries are a little bit tricky. They will give you sounds to rhyme, but this can fail you sometimes because dialect can play. People come from different countries, may say the same word differently. Pronunciations may vary on region, or from just the peculiarities of one's voice. Take mine, for example. People make fun of my accent all the time. I'll give you an example. The word oil, O-I-L. That can rhyme with the word coil, as in a spring that coiled. Coil. Okay, you can see that. But can oil rhyme with girl, like a little girl? Believe it or not, in the Midwest they pronounce the word oil earl. As in, "Hey Ernest, can you go check the oil in my pickup truck?" I kid you not. So, you might find this book useful. The Essential Songwriters Rhyming Dictionary. This is actual lists of words. This is a good book. Okay, now that you've got variations of words and rhyming words and maybe some dialect to play with, the next thing that comes into play, poetic forms. There are well over 100 different forms of poetry. Everything from Shakespearean sonnets to limericks to triolets, villanelles, concrete poetry, which I touched on in an earlier episode, which is in the shape of the poem is in the shape of whatever form they're talking about. Where is it? So that gives you an idea of that. So, and here's another thing. Subject. Write what you know. I'm not trying to discourage you when I'm throwing all these things at you. I am trying to encourage you, and I am also trying to tell you that, again, just because you write a poem and you show it to your friends they may not be the best judge of what a poem is. So just be very careful. And if you ever see those like in a TV guide or a newspaper where it says, send us your poem, National Poetry Contest went up to $100,000 for your poem, and it's from a place in Owings Mill, Maryland, that's a scam, people. Do not participate. Best way to gauge if you are any good as a poet is to surround yourself with other poets. You're only going to be good if you write poems. You're only going to be prolific if you write poems on things that you are well versed in. You should read as many other published famous poets as possible. Edgar Allan Poe, Dylan Thomas, Charles Bukowski. Of course, Bukowski is the greatest poet of the 20th century. You will hear me talk about Bukowski till I am blue in the face. I love Bukowski. He was born at the right time, in the right society, in the right social settings, had the right connections, and was a very prolific man who wrote 50 books of poetry. And I don't think it's going to happen today. You will never get rich selling poetry. So if you're becoming a poet to be rich, sorry, isn't going to happen. You may break even. You may make a little something, but you're certainly not going to retire. Anyhow, enough with the chit-chat about poems. Let's examine a poem. This poem is concrete. Again, it's in a form. It is a settebello, and it is in the style of a woman by the name of Carol Forsyth. So it deviates from the form. You can play with the form. There are accepted deviations. This is one of them. The regular settebello is a 7-line poem. It's an acrostic. Carol Forsyth's version is still an acrostic. It is 8 lines, and she varies the number of syllables on the line count from 1 syllable in the first line to 8 syllables in the last line. And since this is October and it's Halloween season, let's go with a poem called Haunting. House at night up a hill. No one is there. There's nothing living in the house on that hill. No one alive will go there. Ghosts dwell where the living fear to